And we're able to convert a lot of our aircraft into flying ventilators pretty much. So we're working also with companies such as Shaju, yours, and German company, one major competitor you have here. So we're able to convert a lot of civil aviation platforms into medical evacuation platforms and bring people home. And just like the Indian Air Force also was using our rivals' platforms too. But in the end, aviation is just a means of moving things and people around. And there was that small window where people needed to be moved around. And that was from that, we learned a few things. A lot of military aircraft are being used for moving people and things around between countries. For example, masks are being sent across in hundreds of thousands between, let's say, Turkey and mainland Europe, China and mainland Europe. Initially, it was mainland Europe sending stuff to China. So PPE, etc.
Hi, this is Indranil joining. Can you hear me?
Hey, Indranil.
Can you see me or not?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
See you.
I'm not able to see the screen. Trying to figure out.
Screen is blank at this point, I think.
Yeah, but I can see you, Saju, but I'm not seeing me or anyone else. So let me go to the gallery view. Yeah, now I can see it. Yeah. Okay, great.
Hi, Indranil.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, Indranil.
Hello, Atul. Hello, Santanu and Saju.
Hello, Indranil.
Hey, Indranil.
Da will make him more aged. So you can't say Da.
It's just that it's a term of endearment.
Yeah.
Sort of Da, right?
Yeah.
One of my batchmates who used to work with Indranil in IBM days. So after seeing your photos on this story session, he called me up. He says, you might be knowing Manish Chopade.
Yeah.
So he called me. He says he worked with you. I said, good to know that.
Good to know that, Atul.
He is our batchmate in this session. 2020.
Okay, great. Give my regards to him.
Yeah, sure. So that's what he was sharing, that you build up IBM consultancy business in early 2000s, and you were the person who drove to the successful business, and after a successful time with the IBM, and then you joined Direction.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because consulting world is a very small, so people knows each other, and the people who work each other, so it's obviously they knows people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Poonam, we are just waiting for Pallavi, right?
Poonam's there. I don't see her. Hello, Poonam.
Her mic is mute, and video is also off.
Yes, the Bindu, we are waiting for Pallavi only. She's been added.
So, Atul, like you, I also decided to wear my ISB t-shirt.
Oh.
But it may not be visible. It's a little bit down below here.
So that was the idea. Poonam said that it would be better if we wear. I thought, yeah, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I found my Wharton t-shirt. I decided not to wear it.
That's a good idea.
You want to stick to the best, right? In terms of
yeah. I wore my ISP t-shirt out. I wore it out. Now it's not. Maybe we need to get a new one.
Yep.
Shaju's wearing a Netherlands jersey, I think.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, maybe from next time onwards, if Devendra organize all such sessions, so he will organize a t-shirt before organizing a session.
Why not? I'll put in a
Why not?
T-shirt so that everybody.
What you could do is, why not organize virtual backgrounds for this place over here?
Yeah.
I could have used just if I had a nice image, I could have used it as a dynamic as a virtual background. It would have been really cool.
Sure. So we'll have a next time with you then, because we have to fulfill that.
Thank you.
Hopefully post-COVID webinar.
People will not have any choice. So whatever you say, people have to obey that. So you are not giving any choice, basically.
Devendra, how long have you been in your position now? Because we didn't happen to meet.
Right. So for the last 3 years, so now heading admissions and financial aid, and also the Office of Alumni Engagement, also part of the Dean's Office. So having a busy time at ISB.
I imagine. And you're responsible for this across all the programs, for all the programs?
Across all programs, yeah.
Wow.
So I'm myself a ISB alum as well as a MIT alum. So like, and I came back from the US that time. So that's how I ended up being here.
That's good. I miss my ISB days.
Yeah.
Basically, Devendra is face for ISB, because wherever you go in India or you meet candidate, everybody knows Devendra, whether it's now or maybe 2-3 years since when Devendra is there.
I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a very good thing. So this shows that you are well connected with the people, and people acknowledge that. So it's a very good thing. I mean, at least people knows that if they need some clarification, they need to approach someone, it is Devendra, and they can approach you. So it's a really good thing.
Thank you for that. My mails, that's why I never stop coming. So
so now you also see this. So, I mean,
109 attendees.
I see 117 actually.
The internet in Netherlands is a bit faster than in Germany.
so that is also making a difference.
Yeah.
And I have no hesitation in accepting that. You know, when I moved here, I was given an 8 Mbps line, and it was the fastest.
Yeah.
I was like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
In Delhi, I had a line which was probably 10 times faster.
Yeah.
So when did you move to Germany?
2016, right at the end of PGPMAX, or
And
towards
Sajid,
the
how
end.
about you?
We're just waiting for Pallavi. She has received the link. She's just joining in.
okay. So Poonam, once Pallavi joins in, we'll get started.
Yes. Once she joins, we'll start.
Okay.
Yeah. I moved in
Can they
2017 in Ranir.
Sorry?
I moved in 2017.
2017, okay.
Yeah.
Good. So you can link it to PGPMAX program now.
Sure.
Thanks, Indranil. That's a good way of saying go to PGP and then the world becomes your horizon playground.
Wendy, only following your footsteps, Indranil. When did you move?
I moved 2017 beginning, so I finished 20
Okay.
middle. 2017 beginning, I moved to Dubai for 2.5 years. I moved to Stockholm just last year in August.
Okay.
All right. Today is the summer solstice here.
Yeah,
Which means
midsummer.
we will have and today the length of the day is 16 hours and 18 minutes.
Yeah. A Danish guy in my office was explaining me what it's about. He was telling me they sent all the witches to Germany, actually, by burning all the witches.
Oh, that would have only increased the population here.
Okay, that's a new one. I've never heard of that before.
I think you can make as many jokes about Germany, and one amazing thing about the people here are they can laugh at themselves.
Yeah.
They don't laugh at anything else, but only themselves.
Raju, in your the photo you have in the CEO story,
Yeah.
it looks like a politician.
He looks like Amit Shah, because looks little like politician mission jacket and then look also a little bit like
Yeah. I probably have an alternative career actually.
Yeah, and Shantanu looks like an actor.
Well,
Yeah.
we all act.
Yeah.
It's like a handsome actor, hero.
Oh,
Okay, now we have 137 participants.
somebody is saying yes, Saju looks like Amit Shah on the chat box also.
Oh wow! Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
My guess was much wrong.
I do see that Poonam is signed on roughly
So
30 times.
are we live then? Because it's in
Yeah, we are live. We are live.
Okay. Mhm.
So everyone can hear this.
Yeah.
I'll go mute then.
No, we have the next polling question coming up that Shantanu looking like an actor.
Awesome icebreaker. Yeah, it is. Without knowing
Yes.
it was.
Yeah. We were not aware.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can go back to the midsummer in Europe then, right? So neutral topic. Yeah.
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 So do you guys have summer vacation plans yet, or all of you?
No, actually anyone in Sweden now, because Sweden is following a different kind of model. Almost like they're not allowed or welcome to any other countries in Europe now. So being in Stockholm, I can only move around in Stockholm now. No plan. Even I cannot go to India. Yeah, that's a pity.
So I see Pallavi joining in. Hi, Pallavi. Can you hear us?
Hi everyone, finally. Oh man, this technical shit is horrible. I joined, I heard your whole discussion, but unfortunately, I had a login which was more like an attendee, and hence I couldn't speak.
Last time, which I was facing, Pallavi, if you remember, because there were a couple of calls and messages with Poonam. So I think this time it was with you.
Yeah, it was. I was on call with Poonam.
I think so. Then now we have everyone, so we can start.
Sure, Poonam.
Yeah, sure.
So good evening. Hello, everyone. And I would like to welcome you all for the session of the CEO story. I'm Poonim Tripathi, handling admissions for PGPMAX program. Today's session, we have PGPMAX alumni from different parts of the world. Along with, we have a director, Divendu Bose. The session will be moderated by Atul Priyadarshi. On that note, let me invite Divendu Bose, Director of Admissions, Alumni Engagement Team, and the Dean's Office to take over. Over to you, Divendu, now.
Thanks, Poonam. That was pretty short. So the way we would like it, I guess. So good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending on which part of the world you are joining from. So I hope you and your families are doing well and staying safe. Welcome to the CEO Story, a learning initiative from ISB, specially designed for the PGPMAX community. So here we invite our senior alums to share their journey as well as industry insights. At ISB, we say our alumni, our pride. We are very proud of our alum strength, apart from the global faculty that you might have heard about or come across. So in fact, today we are 11,700 plus alums distributed in 60 plus countries with more than 500 of them in leadership positions at global companies and 600 plus heading entrepreneurial ventures or family businesses. Interestingly, if I have to cite an example of how our alums, ISB alums are touching your lives, I would just say that when you wake up in the morning and check your WhatsApp message, ex-CEO of, ex-Chief Business Officer of WhatsApp is an ISB alum. You take a shower using an Unilever product, CEO of Unilever Bangladesh is an ISB alum. before COVID hit us, possibly you were using the OYO hotels. And then again, CEO of OYO India and South Asia is an ISB alum. By the way, the aircraft you took to reach that city might be an Airbus. So we'll hear from the alum there today. Then the cab you took to office, most likely an Uber. Ex-chief product officer of Uber is an ISB alum. At office, you use SAP, ex-managing director of SAP in India and current MD of Deutsche Bank is a PGPMAX alum. You use PDFs on a regular basis. So Adobe ex-MD of India is an ISB alum. So I can go on and on and on. But in fact, this evening, you'll get to hear from 4 such accomplished PGPMAX alums spanning industries as diverse as aerospace to banking, electronics or technology to networking and telecommunications. So welcome to, I would summarily say that welcome to ISB, where you might just hit the right note to script to your own CEO story. Have a great evening and enjoy the insights from our PGPMAX alums joining us from across the globe. Over to Atul now, who himself is a current PGPMAX student from the class of 2020 and heading the investment, business planning and development at Vika India. Just for your trivia, Vika is the company that invented cement in the year 1817 and currently has presence in 12 countries. So thanks to you, Atul, for moderating this session, and thanks to our alums, Pallavi, Shaju, Indranil, and Shantanu, for their continued commitment to ISB. Over to you, Atul.
Thank you, Divendu, for introducing me to the forum. And good evening, everyone. In this forum today, we are going to hear success stories of our PGPMAX alumni who are successful and achievers in their respective field, the way Divendu explained. And for this, we have on the panel today 4 successful and achievers in their respective fields are Indranil Das, Pallavi Raje, Saju Ramchandran, and Santanu Gupta to share their thoughts and experience about life at ISB and life after ISB. So on behalf of ISB, I welcome the panelists also and the participants for this interesting session. So before starting the discussion, I would give you a brief of the brief introduction of the panelists so that people will understand the discussion perspective. I hope they will appreciate the background they come from and the experience they had in the industries. So first among the panelists, because he is a senior most among the panelists, is Indranil Das, who is working as a Vice President Erection and alums of PGPMAX 2014. Indranil is a basically engineering background from Jadavpur University and having experience of 25 years in industry of telecom and IT sectors. And he is currently based in Stockholm and looking after the telecom business and global clients of the telecommunication. He had managed Erection business and helped company in growing the business in a profitable growth. And prior to working Erection, Indranil had been a key driver for the IBM Global Business Services and the consulting. And he had experience of working with PwC also. So this was brief about the Indranil. Now our second senior most alumni of this panel is Pallavi Raje. She had experience in the banking sector of 12 plus years. Mostly with the Standard Chartered Bank. She is with Standard Chartered since last 12 years based at Singapore. Before that, she worked with Indian bank like SDFC also in the beginning of her career. She belongs to Mumbai and worked in the various parts of the cities or in the country. Interestingly, she is a member of Standard Chartered SG Women Dragon Boat Racing Team. And she has been a key member for Standard Chartered private equity business and driving now for the equity business for the Standard Chartered. So our third panelist is Saju Ramchandran, who is alums of 2016. Currently, he is heading the services and solution for this Philips business. He is heading the computational pathology also of this Philips business. Computational pathology is basically working on the way it will change the diagnosis of cancer in the coming days. So this is a futuristic technology on which Philips is working, and Saju is heading that business. He is having 25 years experience in healthcare and all experience with the Philips and with the high technology, working with the medical field and the medical equipments. He is having experience in managing the other professional services of the Philips, like supply chain and operations, also in his career. In his spare time, he loves watching movies and sports during his free time. He is currently based at Amsterdam. And our fourth panelist is Mr. Santanu Gupta. I mean, today's world, aviation is one of the sector most talked about sector. So it was good to have Santanu on panel to discuss about this. And before come to a discussion, I will give brief about Santanu. He is heading the global market forecasting and defense and space sector for the Airbus, based in Munich. He had almost more than 2 decades of experience in sales position in technology and manufacturing. And because of his work profile and experience, he has traveled globally and having experience of working almost 7-8 countries. And he holds a bachelor's degree from Birla Institute of Technology and master's from Illinois Institute of Technology. And he is also running and hiking enthusiast. And in his free time, he likes to reading, and he is a very good guitarist also. So sometime he takes that, and probably for us also he will play a guitar next time when he is in ISB. So Santanu, this is due from you. When our next alumni engagement, you will be our guitarist for the evening. Okay. Now, so this was the brief about our panelist. I am sure that the participant in today's evening are going to enjoy the discussion and enjoy the experience of this panelist. We'll start with some questions to the panelists, and then at the end of the discussion, we'll take some questions from the participants based on the time permits. So now, coming to the panel discussion and the questions to start with, because Saju is the senior most, I'm sorry, Indranil is the senior most in the panel, in PGPMAX alumni today on the panel. So I'll start with Indranil. So Indranil, question to you.
Yeah.
So because now you have experience in ISB, you have experience in working in India before moving to Amsterdam. So can you share something about your professional life before PGPMAX, and what made you to decide about joining the PGPMAX? What was the tipping point when you decided to join PGPMAX?
Sure, Atul. Thank you for the question. And first of all, I would like to thank ISB for this opportunity. It's a privilege and honor to be part of this session. How did I decide to join PGPMAX? It's an interesting question. I go back to 2013. We had 2 days executive leadership training program from Ericsson, and that was organized in ISB Hyderabad. And we went there, like in any executive leadership program. You go, first of all, you feel very, very lucky that you have been picked among the senior leaders to attend that. And of course, then you go learn, and then what do? You forget. Now, during that session, what happened? Something interesting. We had very good faculty, and I realized they are not from India. So Medini Singh was there from Columbia Business School. We had Sudhanshu Pal Sule, and the session 2 days was very, very transformative session. And then that actually led me to think, like by that time, I have worked in Pricewaterhouse, one of the top 4 consulting organizations. And I have kind of built the SAP and consulting practice for IBM in India and then globally in a way, and then joined Ericsson. So after 16, 17 years, you think like you have done enough, you know, and then going to that session for 2 days, couple of days, leadership session, it was transformative. I said, I need to learn more. it's like the urge of learning, I think, overpowered me. And then I went to PGPMAX admission office and inquired, and it was an impromptu decision because in my life, I must tell you, many of the important decisions like marriage, the first house, first car is very, very impromptu decisions. So this was one of them. I decided then on the spot I'll join. Of course I have to apply, but the decision was made from my side, and I never regret that decision, even today.
Thank you so much, sir. This was a good experience because that highlight was the art of learning. This is something that keeps people moving ahead and dreaming for the future. So this was a very good point, Indranil. And now, I mean, continuation to the art of learning, because this is something everybody aspires for it and everybody tries for this. So with this art of learning, I will come to Pallavi with a question that Pallavi, since you are in this key decision maker position for the global private equity business of Standard Chartered Bank, so how do you feel this art of learning and the few ingredients you feel is required to reach this position, and how PGPMAX has helped to achieve the professional success in your life?
My apologies, Atul. I think I had a slightly wavering connection. Can you repeat your question?
Okay. So in continuation to Indranil, because Indranil have picked up a good point of art of learning that aspire people to dream higher and moving ahead in the life. So with that art of learning and people who are achiever today and at the some position at the decision maker level for some business, like you holding a very important and decision making position for the Standard Chartered global private equity business. So what in your opinion is the few key ingredients you feel is required to reach at this position, and how PGPMAX has helped to achieve the professional success in your life?
Yeah. So I think just like Indranil, essentially, I had been working at least for in the same banking industry for close to 15 years, primarily in the corporate banking section, which is when I sort of started thinking if I'm getting too, zoomed into a specific area of banking, not looking at something else. Also, I had a little bit of background on ISP in the sense that when I worked with IDBI in Hyderabad, I was covering ISP as a corporate banking client. And interestingly, when I had visited the dean at that time out of interest, I think there was a very interesting poster that he had put up, which said, "If you think education is expensive, think ignorance." That I think had kind of stayed with me for a very long time. And it's about 2013 or so when I started thinking about it, and I was thinking, maybe I need to reinvent myself. Also, what happens is, all that you have learned and acquired over years, I think the relevancy starts coming down. So I personally wanted to invest in myself. At least the organization that I worked for at that point of time did not really look into sponsoring candidates, etc. But I thought it was my personal responsibility to invest in myself, which is how I started my ISB journey. And I think in terms of how you go forward on, I won't say really the most key decision maker or anything, but essentially I've always focused on the quality of work that I do. I enjoy. It's a job that I have always looked forward to every morning. And the key to, I think, getting to that level of, state, I think is, of course, there's no denying that there's hard work, but also that I think my key takeaway from ISP, which has kind of helped me in my career going forward, has been that it makes you sort of an all-rounded perspective on things. Because while you think you might know or specifically on banking or some specific industries that you are covering, but when you come to the class with people from extremely diverse backgrounds, We had people who were from the Navy, people from Army, doctors, all kinds of backgrounds. I think that kind of makes it for a very, I would say, a generalist view and a more rounded perspective that you need. And that helps you, I would say that it's not it's not something that you see very apparently, except for the fact that you feel that all the conversations in the class are extremely value adding. It's not just the professor who's teaching, but it is the class that you are studying with, and all of the conversations that you are having, you're getting a different perspective on a daily basis. But I think you start seeing this difference over a period of time when where it kind of humbles you as a person. It sort of opens your mind for newer opportunities. I have then moved to very different roles. So after corporate banking, I have actually moved to strategy for corporate banking. That's how I moved here to Singapore. I moved to private equity much later. But yeah, I mean, strategy was something really different. I mean, when I was interviewed at some point of time, I thought, I was thinking, is this something that I want to do? Because this seems like a job that, when you are at the grassroots level doing business, it seems like a job where you don't do anything. So, of course, that's not the case, but I'm just saying it kind of opens your mind to taking newer challenges, which only keeps benefiting you in terms of taking some other challenges. So what I'm doing for private equity also is slightly different from what it appears to be. So the bank actually announced its strategic intent to sell down the private equity business. So that's the key strategic initiative that I'm working on. Essentially, we did a management buyout. We finished selling majority of the investments. We continue to do so. Unfortunately, the COVID situation has kind of delayed a little bit on this front. But yeah, I think to summarize what you are asking is, I think the PGPMAX sort of helps you in taking, opening your mind, taking additional challenges, being a lot more confident in dealing with people, having technical knowledge, of course, which the course gives you. Yeah, that's essentially it.
Okay. Thank you, Pallavi, for sharing your experience. So now, thank you, Indranil and Pallavi, for sharing your experience. Coming to Saju's, because if you see this experience with ISB and the PGPMAX, everybody has their own experience. So Saju, would like to know from your perspective, what is your takeaway from PGPMAX program, and how do you feel that is important to drive the professional and personal growth of an individual?
Yeah, thank you, Atul, and hi to all the participants. So I think there are two questions there. So the first question in terms of key takeaways, by the way, for me, I was pushed into this program, to be very honest. And in fact, my manager pushed me into this program at that point. With all your day jobs and the time that you spend doing all those day jobs, you really look at it and say, oh, you don't have the time to do this, right? But at this point, I cannot thank that manager enough in terms of what he did to me, because when I look back, that's probably also my turning point in terms of getting to this second level of your career, actually, right? So in terms of key takeaways, if I can say three things, that probably the top three. The first one, like Pallavi mentioned, it's the kind of people that you get to know in your class, the cumulative knowledge and the experience that you get access to, right? Not only during the course, but also after that as well. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that you take after PGPMAX, because it's summation of all the people that you get to know, not only in your batch, but also the people you connect with from an alumni perspective across ISB. The second one I would say is you probably develop a toolkit for yourself for you to use it in your professional life. It makes you much more stronger in terms of being able to face situations. And that obviously helps you. Of course, you don't get a toolkit when you complete the course, but I think as you progress through the course, you develop a toolkit yourself in terms of all the learnings that you have. The third point I would say is it initially throws you out of your comfort zone, because you get used to a lot of things if you're working for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and you think this is it, right? Because you're used to it. Initially, it throws you out of your comfort zone, but later on, as you realize, as you go through the journey, it gives you the confidence actually to take career risks actually in your life. And maybe that I can use this to actually move to the second part of the question, which was more of how did it help me in my professional and personal growth. So most of my career was basically based out of India. I did manage some part of Asia Pacific region at some point of time. But when this opportunity came up, where I am in my current role, leading incubator business, which Philips has started, where, like you mentioned, Atul, during the introduction, this is about digitizing pathology, where you're trying to diagnose cancer in a way that you can treat it and make it very precise kind of diagnosis so that you have precision medicine for cancer. All of us know how difficult it is to diagnose cancer and you don't get the right treatment, and that's where we have. So Philips found this an interesting area to invest in, and this was created as part of an incubator business about 10 years back. And the last couple of years has been moving from incubator to a growth business. So when this opportunity came up, I feel very confident to put up my hand and say, okay, I can do this, which probably I would not have been much confident earlier, right? So, and once I got into the role, I also realized, because I had to move to Amsterdam, I personally came across about 6 degrees of change, right? You get into a business where you have to create the market. It's not about market share, it's about creating the market. The second part of it is your family moves to a different place altogether. You're not used to that. The third part is you have a global team across 35 countries, people with different culture, different ways of working. You need to understand how to manage them. And of course, you come across a completely different customer segment, which you have not been able to manage. So I think I would say having done the PGPMAX course helped me in a way to be able to manage the expectations that everybody had from me when I moved into this role.
Thank you, Sajju, for sharing your experience. So now coming to Santanu, because everybody has inspired with something or other, like Sajju says it was someone pushed him for this. And then Indranil says that it was his initiative for going into this. Then Pallavi says her experience has inspired her. So now we would like to hear from Santanu that what was motivational for him and what is his experience about PGPMAX and how he landed up there and how the ecosystem of ISB had been a life experience for Santanu, because he had experience of education in India, in US, and working in different countries, and then coming to ISB. So how he can share and how he would like to share his experience with the participant on this?
I think I was at a time where I was learning to plan my life in 2 steps. I generally, and this is a mantra I've learned from somebody at work. And again, like Shaju, it's a someone who I respect very much. So when you plan life in 2 steps, you often should look at what do I don't know currently. I was reaching a point where I didn't even know what I didn't know. So there were unknowns in my life, which I think, you do turn back to education as I had previously in my life. So I did scout for MBA programs. And when I say I planned my life in 2 steps, I did have an alternative to ISB, but I picked ISB over the other much more, let's say, global or much more well-known school, because I think I was totally sold on the fact that the ISB value add is that it's a school for Indian multinationals and for Indian professionals to work in multinationals. national organizations. And this was shared by an ISB alumni with me who happens to be my schoolmate. So my ISB journey really began by talking to my school friends who actually two of them who were ISB alums. And from there, of course, rest is history. My experience, coming into the program was, in the first term, everybody gets frazzled. Everybody is blown to bits by the two quite difficult subjects. But, I always like to ask, life is hard, but compared to what? What is the option? So I guess MBA is indeed hard, but we're supposed to be business leaders. You're supposed to answer much, much more difficult problems. So what if it's a statistics exam, and so what if you fail? So, I learned, it came back to me when I entered the first term. This very simple fact of life came back to me, and it really helped me. And the third thing I realized during my ISB journey was that you do expect to learn here. Of course, Virat Kohli doesn't go to the World Cup with the sole objective of drinking champagne after the final. I mean, he has to work hard, of course. So with ISB, you do party, you do have fun, but it's well earned. You have to put in work. So if you're expecting to learn, be prepared to work hard and then party hard, but in that order. Again, plan life in 2 steps. And why it's really been life-changing? 3 things. Diversity. I told you, I didn't know what I didn't know. So when I came to my class, I've quietly admired a lot of people, Shaju included, who was extremely quiet but very rich in his experience, and several other colleagues classmates who've managed, their own businesses, who've who've created extraordinary things out of very modest beginnings, and you learn the diversity. What I did also learn was how the challenges we also got close to some of the research faculty in ISBs who were our research assistants or assistants to professors. You also get close to them and you realize everybody lives a different life, everybody has a different challenge, and that diversity brings you a lot closer to your real self, which you've probably drifted away from. Second is respect. I think that's universal, and you learn to respect people, period, regardless of who they are, regardless of how they might be. And I think this people focus is what has singularly helped me move forward. And then again, I planned my life in 2 steps. When I did move to Europe, I did manufacture at least 2 opportunities in the company. And so I had the option to move to France and Germany at the same time. So I picked the one. So ISB did give me this right from the time I spoke to the alum to the time I actually moved here. It's been instrumental in just guiding my values, giving me a tool chest, and always making me think, yes, life is hard, but compared to what?
There's a very good point, Santanu, you are mentioning life is hard, but compared to what? So figuring out this is very important. It's early days of your life, your education days, or in the professional life when you grow at the senior level. So in relating to this, the life is hard. So I will come to Indranil with a question. Indranil, I mean, because Santanu has given a very good point of different level of hardness in life, and it's a relative term. So what have been your biggest challenge you had overcome as a senior leader of your organization? And how do you feel that when the hard time comes, how this exposure and the learning at ISB helps you in selling through that?
Sure, Atul, and great insights from everyone. The biggest challenge, of course, it depends on where you are in your journey as an organization, right? But if I look at whether it's a big organization or small organization, one of the things we continue to observe is that many times you get hostage of your own success. And let me explain what I mean by that. You look at any organization that you have your products or services which are doing well, and you continue to feed that into your customers get value out of that, fantastic. Then while doing that, you keep on doing that, sometimes in organization, you lose the spirit of experimentation. Okay, and especially true when the organization gets even bigger, right? It's a global organization. You have many countries, many kind of business. You keep on doing the same thing time and again, and you forget the spirit of experimentation, spirit of trying new things, and in that process, then you start missing out the opportunities, right? So the key balance here is that while you continue with your current business, how you continue to innovate with an open mindset, how you look at the trends happening in the marketplace or unmet customer need and latch onto the trend. That is the biggest challenge. And in a way, I see that some of these MBA programs, be it executive MBA or other MBA, actually helps you open your mind and mindset towards a growth mindset. That is very important. And if you look at the challenge, I think it keeps changing, right? As an organization, it's an overall perspective I gave, but if you look at the current times, the times of pandemic and what's happening, right? We are now going to a new world, almost a digital world, right? More working from home and things like that, right? What will happen, another thing I would like to bring it up here, and we may not discuss it in details here, maybe topic for another webinar or discussion, that look, in a pre-pandemic or pre-COVID era, we were in office 90-95% of the time and the workforce. And those little chats in the coffee machine or as you pass across in the hallway, that is a distressing factor, right? You de-stress by having those little chats in a very informal way. And today, when you work from home, all dispersed, you do not have that outlet. And that will have a psychological impact and impact the well-being of our employees and societies. And I see many organizations already started taking steps there, which is great. This will become a very big challenge down the line. So as I said, challenge is not like a static, it's dynamic. So there's an overall perspective I gave, as well as what's going to be a challenge, even in the new era of digital post-pandemic. Also, I wanted to highlight that.
So, I mean, that's a very valid point of challenge is very dynamic, especially in today's scenario when people even cannot plan for a week, because there are saying, somebody was saying that when the time people used to plan for the annual thing, but now even people are not even to plan for the weekly things. So this was a very relevant in the current context. The challenge is very dynamic. So with this context, I will come to Pallavi with a question that, Pallavi, what do you think with this challenging or the dynamic challenge? So what do you feel that the long-term career perspective and the medium-term career perspective, how this PGPMAX is helping to the students in their life?
I'm so sorry, I lost your question again. Can you repeat it?
Okay. So, because Indranil was mentioning a very relevant point in the current context is the dynamic challenge. So with this dynamic challenge, if we talk about somebody's career in immediate term, medium term, and long term, so every phase has a different kind of challenge. So how do you feel that these challenges at the different phase of the career and the mindset of the people transforms with the help of the peer learning with ISB and the experience at ISB and the interaction with the professor and interaction with the, your peers with ISB? So how does that help in coping up with the dynamic challenge in today's world and maybe in the future coming world?
Yeah. So I think in terms of, they might be slightly repetitive because I think a lot of panelists have made these remarks, but I think the immediate, the immediate impact that one is armed with technical knowledge that makes you more in, not just doing your existing job, but taking up newer opportunities. Then you have your, you have your class, a set of people who have your back. You can bounce off your ideas, your opportunities, I have a life coach in my class alum team. So thanks to all of their diverse experience, I think you immensely start benefiting from from what they have to say about what you have been considering almost immediately. So that's one. The second thing is from a medium term, I think this is something that I had focused on. Long term is of course there, but newer opportunities open up. You are more amenable, or you're open to looking at things that you would have probably thought as daunting. But yeah, you start taking newer opportunities that kind of helps you in getting out of that that comfort zone that that we are talking about. On a long-term basis, I think from everyone's perspective, those who want to a rounded perspective of business, because what has happened is, I think all of us who are at this stage of doing PGPMAX, everybody spent 10, 15 plus years of of their working life in a specific team. So from a functional leader, I think that journey to becoming an all-rounder, or to becoming a slightly more generalist, I think that's something that the program would I would expect would serve on a long-term basis.
Okay, that's great. That's a very valid point. So with this, what you mentioned about the experience of 10, 15 years shifting from a functional leader to a generalist, and from CXO to CEO level, or to that position. With that context, I would come to Saju with a question. Saju, what is your opinion about this program? How does this transform individuals' career after 15 years of 10 years of experience in their professional life and coming to ISB? And is it worth spending time and money after 15 years of experience? Because people say that at the beginning of a career, when people are learning fast. So people say that till the 15 years, I have learned so much and I can survive for the next future years in my life. So how do you feel that it's worth spending this money and time after experience of 15 years?
Yep, no, good question, Atul. So maybe I can share from my experience. So like I mentioned earlier, when you're working, and most of us who want to join PGPMAX have grown up the ladder in our functional roles, probably. So we have made good progress and we have been best at what we do there. And you would see that when you reach about 12 years, 15 years, or 20 years, you have hit the ceiling in terms of your career growth. And you need to transform at that point from, like Pallavi mentioned, from moving from functional management to a general management kind of thing, right? So that is a very important aspect. And for you to be able to do that, it's difficult because for 15 years, you have been used to a way of doing things. Your mind is set in a particular pattern and a particular way of thinking. So you need somebody to push you out of your comfort zone there and be able to relearn again. And I think that's why this is very important. And personally, like I mentioned earlier, it becomes very important for you to be able to, in some cases, unlearn and then relearn again. And it's a very important aspect of that. Because if you don't do that, you probably would get frustrated because you would not grow at the same pace you have been growing earlier. Because you don't have the capabilities or the competencies that you require to go to the next level. And I guess this program actually helps you actually do the transformation from a sense of relearning and actually giving you probably a holistic view in that sense, in terms of also then trying to benchmark you against others that you meet along in your course. And you suddenly discover, hey, things happen so different in other industries, or these people do it so differently. And that helps you learn and rediscover yourself. And I would say, yes, it has worked for me. In fact, I joined the course after 20 years of my experience, actually. So, and it has helped me for sure.
Yeah, that's a good example that you said, not even 10, 15, so 20 years experience also, and then it's worth considering and it adds value to your future life.
Absolutely.
So now we'll come to Santanu with a question of whatever we have been discussing now. So Santanu, what do you feel that the things, because in the current situation and the past also with the dynamic business scenario, that when people are pushed to the wall and in the difficult times, so you need certain skills to cope up with that and to pass through the time and survive the business, support your people and the team. So in relation to this, what do you feel the key challenges for CEOs in today's time with respect to the current COVID situation and in the coming days when people will have a altogether different scenario in the business and the mindset of the people? So with this condition, how learnings is very important and the continuous learning and art of learning is important to cope up with this to address the key challenges of the future CEO.
I think I can answer that with my own personal experience and with the experience we have in our industry, which has been quite significantly impacted by the current crisis from the epidemic. I think, number one, an epidemic is essentially a non-linear or an exponential system where you have interdependent variables. You cannot sometimes, separate causes from effects. Sometimes the effects themselves become causes. I know it is a very chaotic system, and you have to first understand that there is a limit to its comprehension, not just by my industry or by me, but by everyone. So the first thing we did was actually rely on what we know. Number one, we relied on mathematics and statistics, and we created fairly robust models, not alone, not with one team, but across the company, to kind of see how far this could go and devise various scenarii for planning and demand management, etc. Having done that, the second thing is to plan your response. And for this, you have a second tool in addition to mathematics or statistics. It's history. This is not the first crisis in the world. However, this is, like I said, it's a chaotic crisis. So the second thing we tried to do was find historic analogies. But there is not one single analogy to COVID. There was the Spanish flu 100 years ago. There was the Great Depression about 80, 90 years ago. In the last 20 years, there's been the 9/11 SARS crisis. SARS was sort of a very small, limited period crisis, which impacted a limited population, limited geography of the world. So you use history to challenge your views, and you ask, okay, what did my company do? What did my industry do when SARS was happening? Did that work out for me? What did I do when 9/11 happened? If you combine all these crises, literally all industries would have been impacted. You can say after 9/11, maybe banking was impacted, or after .com, maybe certain airlines were impacted, etc. Or the .com bubble killed a lot of the weak business models. I really think history, mathematics, statistics, these are not just plain academic disciplines. They can be used in business. And second, you need to look externally to managing your stakeholders. In our industry, governments are very key stakeholders. They can be commercial organizations such as airlines, etc. They're key stakeholders. You don't need to express false empathy or false hope, but you do need to work with them. And how you can work with them is diversify your portfolio, like we were discussing during the icebreaker. There are many ways you can reconfigure your portfolio without saying very much, because some of our products are military in use. So, but there are many ways of reconfiguring your own product and your own services. So look down inside your portfolio. Another thing this epidemic probably has shown us is that no matter what it is doing, it's probably also accelerating the things that were already going on. So we have some exposure in the Valley, or we have some exposure in startup scene as well. We're a very big conglomerate. But we realize if those businesses were fundamentally weak, they will not survive this crisis, but they would have not survived it anyways. So maybe there is a hidden blessing in a crisis. So make sure you can also use it to clean up some of the things that weren't working. And as far as people go, I think people come first. I've already spoken about all these things would not be possible. That is reconfiguring your portfolio, diversifying, or working with your stakeholders, etc., or using, let's say, history to challenge your view, or to using math, etc. It's not possible till you have people people who are willing to work, they're present. And how do you do that? You make very simple rules. So for example, I've been going to office for the last 2.5 months. There was a lockdown, but we devised very simple and pragmatic ways of social distancing. And I have not seen most of my team. It works in 3 different countries. But we've been able to keep things going with the help of technology. The larger your company, you cannot all just sit at home as well. I imagine a lot of us have factories and plants. Those jobs are not possible to be done from home. So you need to also show solidarity. So I don't work in a factory, but if I start sitting at home, that sends some sort of a message, or some sort of, not a correct message, to somebody who's risking taking the risk head on and working in the plant. So I think there needs to be mutual empathy between, to create simple rules, but adhere to them with a lot of discipline. That's what we've done in our company or in our industry. It's not just us, but it's being done. And so far we're getting good results from it. But yeah, of course, it has impacted us adversely, but we're taking it one step at a time. I don't know if that answered that question.
Yeah, that's very rightly answered the question. And because inside that historical analogy, not necessarily that is available. So we need to work on something which improves and which refines a new way of working in future. So on our panel, Indranil Das, who is with the telecom company and the technology part of it. So probably he can answer one question related to this, that how do you think that work culture due to COVID will change, and how the telecom and infrastructure and the technology part is key driver for the future work culture in 2 aspects, because what Santanu was mentioning is people's first, and the acceleration of growth and keeping the stakeholders interest in priority. So to address this, how this telecom business, telecom technology and its infrastructure is key for driving the future growth and the future work culture of the industry.
Right, and Atul, I think the 2 questions you asked, the work culture and the technology need, is related, right? Because if you see the work culture, and I really admire Shantanu, he's going to the office, he wants to be the team. It's also, sometimes you do not have the luxury to work from home, right? So because your team would be there, you have to go there. So I really admire Shantanu for doing that. But if you look at majority of the companies, there are 95% people today who work from home today, right? You have your commercial management team, sales team, even delivery team, all move digital now. All are working from home, right? And that defines a new kind of working model and working culture, where you have to work in a virtual team, be it with your own team, be it with your partners or customers, right? And we all have to adapt to that. And I believe that telecom infrastructure is foundation of that, right? So when we started with this situation, or unfortunately with the virus spreading all across, we didn't have time. And then that time we were thinking whether we have enough bandwidth in terms of the telecom infrastructure, whether it will be able to cope. And thankfully, what we see broadly, in spite of 100% increase in traffic, data traffic, in spite of 90% increase in voice over Wi-Fi call, and these are kind of published in Ericsson Mobility Report, which was published earlier this week. What we see, that telecom infrastructure was able to perform quite well in spite of the surge of traffic, which is great, right? But also, if this becomes a new normal, that more and more people will be working from home. You have seen the Fortune 500 study where some of the CEOs are kind of predicting 26% of their workforce will never come back to office, right? By the way, with some of my cohorts in our PGPMAX team or group, or batch rather, 7 of us, we wrote an article on business after Corona, right, in LinkedIn. And 7 of us collaborated across Berlin, Stockholm, Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, and then we created that thought leadership article, if you will. And we believe that by 2028, around 75 to 80% would be digital workforce, right? And the communication infrastructure would be of utmost importance then, right? the companies will have to think that it's not enough to have an office with all the communication infrastructure. How you create the infrastructure for home office, right? And I see some of the operators are already thinking like a enterprise home solution kind of solution now already. Right? Also, what I see going forward, because of the need of speed, bandwidth would be more, it would be an accelerated 5G adoption. 5G initially was thought is more for enterprise, other kind of business, but now with all this, the home office, video chat, and other applications, 5G adoption will be further accelerated. If you look at it, communication, like your electricity, like your water, is becoming a basic necessity, an utility, if you will. And like the way we expect electricity or water, you expect Wi-Fi at your home or mobile data at your home, the same way going forward. It is one of the foundation or basic human need going forward, I believe.
That's right. So, Indranil, you were mentioning about that 26% of workforce will never come back to work, as per the latest report says. And business after Corona is going to change, and the scenario is going to change. So, how the investment will be popping up and how the investment scenario will change. So, we'll come to Pallavi with a question to investment in an individual and investment to an individual. So Pallavi, question to you, like considering the facts what Indranil has shared, and if individual has to invest in themselves for the learning, for the future growth, so how do you see this time, or the COVID time? Is the right time for the investment, and is it time for the investment or the consolidation? So what is your opinion on the investment in an individual or an investment for a company point of view?
I think it's always a good time to invest in yourself. That's never a bad time. I mean, whichever phase that you are in. So I think COVID, like Indranil has said, has, I think, like the proverbial, the cheese has definitely moved. There are, so for instance, in terms of mindset also, banking industry especially has always been of the belief that work from home etc. is more for IT professionals. Banking people have, at least the old school banking people, have always believed in being in office. You're a front office person, you're always meeting clients etc. That has changed, definitely changed. So I was just chatting to someone from the property team yesterday, and apparently the property team has been working through the last couple of weeks trying to gauge what should be the budget for property, because that's changing, that's slashing, because everybody is realizing that work can be done effectively even if it is from home. Of course, where like Shantul said, where you can't work sitting at home or off-site etc., you can't, but there are certain teams which are able to work. So yeah, in that sense there is a lot of change. In terms of, I think, investment in companies, so we still, like I was saying, that we, I'm essentially overseeing the exit of the private equity business, but we do continue to have a lot of stake in different companies, critically also in the real estate space, in all countries, from India, Korea, China, etc. So what we are hearing from the people on ground essentially is that office space etc., the whole, I mean, besides the specifications, I think the demand is set to change, especially post COVID. Now I think, like Indranil is saying, that they've done, they've put up a article which is talking about certain changes which are bound to happen, but that's essentially what we are hearing on ground as well, that retail continues the way it is, hotel business continues the way it is. I mean, not immediately, there are some medium-term effects, but definitely these are the industries that will flourish. Office space is something that will undergo a sort of a sea change. That's on the real estate business. In terms of some of the other businesses that we continue to have our investments in, of course there are issues, but what we have seen is in terms of some companies which are nimble enough, companies which have been essentially have a good grip on their each cost line, etc. I think those are the companies which have in these times been able to quickly remodel themselves, keep the cost low, because there are certain retail businesses, for instance, which really can't do much, especially as the lockdown started. But yeah, I mean, one is these companies have thought through these kind of times and have a war chest of funds, have been able to quickly reduce their cost and sort of remodel themselves. So yeah, in terms of actually new investments, etc., what we are seeing is there is a lot of private equity fund available in general, especially as markets have mopped up money, investments haven't happened as much as they want. But what's happening is some of the models will need to be reworked, given that some of the assumptions don't hold true, which has kind of ended up with pretty much a 20-25% discount in valuation. So that's happening. Yeah, that's essentially on the investment side. In terms of investment on in individuals, I think I'm a big believer in investing in yourself. Someone asked me on the chat if I continue to be with SAB. That was always the intent. The intent was to invest in myself, and I think it has hugely paid off in terms of what I have been able to achieve post the PGPMAX course.
Great to hear that, Pallavi. So you talked about changes are bound to happen, and there are business who has to change the business model and some new business model that has to come up. So now, since we have Shantanu from the Airbus, and aviation industry is one of the talked about subject globally, which is the most affected by COVID. So would like to hear opinion from Shantanu about the aviation industry future business plan, and what is your opinion and what do you forecast about the future of aviation business model?
I think the aviation business is composed of many more things other than just commercial aviation. So aviation and defense, or aerospace and defense as it's called, has two main users. One is of course the commercial use, which you and I use as passengers. Then within the commercial space, you also use aircraft to transport goods, cargo. On the other end, you also have military business. And frankly, there's also the space business, which is the satellite business, space exploration business, which you must have heard about, the Crew Dragon taking the 2 US astronauts. So that's also, all this is par for the course for the aerospace and defense industry. It's a very vast industry. So what I want to say is one part of the family is sick, definitely, or it has definitely been impacted brazenly by this epidemic, which is the commercial aviation. But military aviation or space sector remains a little more let's say, insulated from. So there are strategies within the industry to kind of balance that damage. Of course, that means a lot of reconfiguration, as I said. That means a lot of looking at in-house efficiencies. Having said that, of course, in the mid and short term, there is no escaping the fact that there could be a huge impact. As I already said, talking to stakeholders really helps, and we are working very closely with them. I can't share very much more. And maybe this is also a good time to clean up the house, to kind of look at our own internal activities, because there is very limited things you can do externally. It's not, maybe M&A makes sense at this time. Some things become cheap, but as Pallavi said, you need to have resources. You need to have cash on your balance sheet to be able to do so. If you don't, then you don't. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. So in continuation to this, if I would like to have your opinion about how this decision making improves or changes before ISB and after ISB. So how do you feel in your personally, in professional life, you experienced that? And what are the 5 key important soft skill or skills you may say for the CEOs is required in today's world? If you can please explain on that and what is your opinion?
Who's the question addressed to?
Santanu, to you.
Okay. Then I need to hear the question again.
So, in continuation to this, because it's changing world and you say when business model changes, so what are the few skills you feel is important for CEOs in coming days and in today's
First of all, with due respect to my CEO, I'm not representing him and I'm not the CEO of Airbus. I'm far from it. But I am a lifelong learner. So I will say the following 3 things. You know, in this time or in any other time, as managers or as leaders, you need to differentiate between 2 things. I at least realize with ISP or even studying once again, I realized that managing or being just a manager or being a individual contributor is about skill, whereas being a leader is about mindset. And we'd probably, those who have been in PGPMAX would know the famous mindset, fixed and growth mindset. And really, being a leader is about being able to change your mindset constantly and that of people around you. And I think there is no better time to evaluate your mindset than now in this crisis. So number 1, that. Second, as a manager myself, so I like to think of myself as a leader, but you can't just do leadery all the time. You also need to be a manager. As a manager, one of the key things I've learned is to split my time between managed time and maker time, which is time which I devote to working myself on thinking, creating. Usually this means getting to office really early. And for this, you don't need an MBA, but I learned it after my MBA because during that MBA time, I was stretched beyond my means. So I was doing my assignments sometimes at office by going to office very early. I've continued that habit. I do my reading of The Economist or the FT very early in the morning because you can't read it at night. It is a very good substitute for a sleeping pill at that time. So and number 3, listening is probably the biggest. You learn from people, but how do you learn from people is, at least I found that as a deficiency, as I might have shown again, I didn't listen to you. I had to listen to you twice. So listening to understand and not listening to respond is a very basic skill, but is very overlooked. As soon as you have the CEO badge on your chest, you're like, okay, now I know everything. Or if you have a SVP or VP tag, learning never ends. In fact, the more senior you become, the more listening to understand you need to perform because there are bright people all around you, hopefully.
Yeah, that's very.
And if I can, and maybe the 4th thing is, this is something I learned in one of my promotion interviews. We have promotion assessment centers like General Electric used to have. We have our own university, etc. Is to trust your instincts. Your instincts are usually right. And we as leaders and managers with 20, 25 years of experience, or maybe 15 or even 5, everybody has instincts. Use those instincts, be unafraid to use those instincts. So those are the 4 things. I didn't speak the 5th because, sorry, that's the limit of my, you asked for 5. But.
So probably then I'll come to Saju for remaining skills. Because one thing is very important is the decision making for the CEO's level and CXO level. So Saju, how do you feel that decision making improves or the way you take a decision changes before ISB or after ISB, or before MBA, PGPMAX and after PGPMAX? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I think all of us make decisions in life, and it's not that you have to do an MBA to make a decision. So
the correct decision,
yeah,
or right decision at the right time, that's very important. So how does that improve?
Yeah, sure. So I would say you probably make more informed decisions because you have probably additional tools at your disposal now for you to make those decisions. And like Shantanu mentioned, you also make decisions based on instincts. So you don't have to drop that. Yeah, so you could use the instinct part of it and also use the data and the other tools that you have at your disposal now, so that you make a much more informed decision than you would have done that in an earlier phase, actually.
That's good. So that's a really valid point, because decisions everybody makes in their life, but then the way, how do we make the informed decisions, and decisions with some rationalities is important. Making just some decision in the flow might not be the correct thing.
Sure.
Atul, just to interfere, we have received a couple of questions in the chat box. So maybe we can pick up those, and because we also need to be considerate about the time as well.
Yeah. So now we'll have a last question from the panel, and then we'll come to the question and sessions when the participants had posted on the chat box. Okay, is it okay, Poonam?
Yes, perfectly fine.
Okay. So last question, the panel is to Pallavi. Hello. Pallavi, can you hear us?
Yeah, very much.
Okay. Pallavi, so how does one rejuvenate career in the second half when you want to take up other interests like entrepreneurship, and how does the management training and certificates help an entrepreneurs and becoming entrepreneurs?
So yes, I mean, I myself am not an entrepreneur, but we've seen scores of people in, I think, each and every PGPMAX class who have post this course set up successful, I would say, entrepreneurships. And I think I've seen in batches before me, in my batch, in batches after me, that some of the people at least have come into the course with very clear ideas that they've been functional leaders so far. They want to start over with an idea that they have been toying for long enough. They're discussing their ideas and how to go about it, etc., with the class. All kinds of people. I mean, yeah, I've been approached by people with regards to balance sheets, with regards to financing, the way they would raise money, etc. So yeah, I think people I've seen taken some of these bold steps after doing PGPMAX in terms of starting out on their own. Networking, as we all know, is a key skill, can never be overemphasized. Everybody does it, but the limitation that we have typically is that we are networking with a set of people that we are with, which tends to be typically of the same industry, the same background, etc. So what PGPMAX does is it essentially puts people from diverse backgrounds into one set of class. And that I've heard from people who have pursued entrepreneurship, that it opens up their mind in terms of, different possibilities, different industries, how do you market something, some new ideas, etc. So yeah, I think, to summarize, my reading is PGPMAX has kind of helped them cross this road from being, a specialist to a generalist, and, use PGPMAX as also a sounding board for some of their ideas, and have gone ahead and set up their own ventures, pretty successful ones.
Right. So now thank you, Pallavi, for giving insight on this. Now we come to some chat box questions, and one question is from Saidi Mohammed, who wants to know about the learning at ISB. So probably Indranil, if you would like to answer this question. The question is there any specialization that they learn during the program, or this is a part of Global Business School? So what is your opinion and learning experience at ISB? Would you like to answer that? Indranil?
Yeah, sure. So if you look at the specialization, I believe the program, the way it is structured, I really like it. It's very, very, it covers various aspects, right? For example, we learn the micro and macroeconomics. Similarly, we learn the leadership. Someone is asking about purpose of life. Even I remember Prashad Kaipa, I don't know, in your batch you had it or not. He talked about finding your North Star, right? Like a purpose of life. And then I think that the variety, and I still remember, for example, in our term, we went to Brazil in Fundação Dom Cabral. And people say Brazil is a like entertainment trip or whatever. But it was not actually in Belo Horizonte, in that University of DC. We learned something called hegemonic cycle and Kondratiev cycle, right? Talking about the economic cycles. And it was wonderful, wonderful learning. Similarly, we learned many other things like a cost management, leadership, change management, innovation. Also negotiation skill, I still remember. so I think the way it is structured, it actually enables you, it introduces you to various aspects of management and leadership, right? It kind of gives you a toolbox, as I think Saju or Shantanu was saying. It gives you a toolbox, and then it's up to you how you enhance that toolbox and continue to use it.
Okay. So related to that question, one question to Pallavi from the participant is, does this program prepare on the future ready to take up the senior position like transitioning from CXO level to CEO level? So how does this program is helpful for that? Pallavi, so your opinion on this?
Well, I have not transitioned to the CEO level to just carve that out. But yeah, good wishes. Thank you very much. But yeah, I think like a lot of panelists had pointed out, it, you know, I think I really like the lingo about gaining a toolkit here. So yeah, with that toolkit and a lot of confidence in terms of newer areas, being comfortable with not being in the comfort zone, time management is a big piece, and something that I did want to tell the participants to watch out for, because I don't think there's anyone who's worked for 10 or 15 years and say, hey, I have a great life and I have fantastic work-life balance. Nobody has it. And in that, you're going to actually push through this whole course which is, maybe not a full-time one, but a fairly large piece of your, it's going to cover many hours in a week. So I think time management is something that you learn. You thought you were good in it, or you thought you were bad in it, whichever ways you will work towards improving on it once you take up this course itself. That helps you as well for senior more roles. And of course, I think the great network, I mean, I reach out to people for completely random things. I wanted to find out something on, let's say last week, someone got in touch with me about data privacy rules around India. I know someone who works in EY in compliance team, heads the compliance team for EY, is a partner sitting out of Gurgaon. So it's just easy for me to just, the network is the technical term, but it's just someone you can reach out to immediately. And, I think everybody does know that if you are seen as a person in your workplace who can find answers, don't have to have an answer immediately, but you have to be resourceful enough to find answers. I think that's also something that, PGPMAX gives you a great advantage to do that.
Yeah, that's good. So one more question from the participants. I hope Indraleen may answer this, because this is related to somebody has query regarding their career progression in the consulting world. Indraeel has experience of consulting world and the corporation. So Indraeel, what is your opinion? How does this program, PGPMAX, is seen as a value addition in the consulting world as well as in the corporations?
I believe it's not just about the consulting world overall. As I said, it's a tremendous value addition. I will give you my own example where I believe I have become more open-minded, more curious, learner after the program. And that some of the things like that, when you start adopting in your life, in your ways of working, you become a different kind of individual, both in professional and personal life. and believe me, it happened to me. So I believe it's just not about consulting in whatever you are going to do as in the organization. It is going to help you. And I'll give you one anecdote. So during the program, I think it was the second year of the program, one of my colleagues walked up to me and said, okay, you talk and your approach is so different nowadays. What happened to you? I don't just say it's because of the ISB PGPMAX program, but it was very much a part of it, right? The way you start thinking, the way you start approaching things would be different.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what people expect, that because everybody has their own apprehension and way of thinking, that how does this help, or how ISB PGPMAX help in their progression and in their life.
Yeah, so, and I just want to add one more thing. What Pallavi said at the beginning. If you are thinking about the cost of the education, just think about the cost of ignorance, or even what Shantanu said. You don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes being vulnerable is very, very important. That you don't have to know it all, but you have the mindset of knowing it all. That is important.
That is important. So related to that, one question to Shantanu. Shantanu, can you hear us? Hello, Shantanu?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
So, because now people are more curious about PGPMAX program and looking for more and more value out of this PGPMAX. So they wanted to hear directly from alumni. And one question is, how does this PGPMAX help in finding the purpose of life? Purpose of life of an individual?
Yeah, I can help that, but I see some anonymous attendee has written a very interesting question. I would like dibs on that one. Maybe the others can help me as well. Somebody's written about, this is not a marketable degree. I'd love to come back to that with the help of my co-panelists. But yeah, purpose of life. I think first thing, the purpose of an MBA is to not get you a salary, right? Or to improve your salary by 30%. That depends on you and me and all of us. You will make it happen. Aren't you happy for once that we, each of us, are pretty much the hero of our own lives? You know, you are in fact in charge of your own career. So the purpose of your life, if it's success, then all I can say is, in my humble opinion, success is not about climbing ladder steps and going higher. Life is about taking full circles. You know, I took a lot from my parents. Now I give a lot to my children. It's coming full circle. Similarly, I was probably a very needy employee, and I wanted to be the guy who probably solved the most problems for the company. Now I help younger people solve the problem, and maybe my co-panelists do the same, and maybe much more down the road. So you need to give back. So it's a full circle. It's not about going higher. So please define success for yourself. I define it like this. Second, a career is not a sprint. It's a marathon, and I can really say that because I am a marathoner, and I've done 14 of them. And every time you're in the last 10% of the miles, you are cursing your life. You're wondering, why on earth did you take this up? But it's also those that are the most rewarding steps, those cramping steps that you take. So career is not a sprint. If you're going to run very fast, yes, you might get glory in the short term, but we do need to live much longer lives. We need to work till maybe 65, 70. And if you're an entrepreneur, maybe even longer. But I think it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And frankly, therefore, this was said in one of, maybe Prasad Kaipa said this, or maybe was it said by Louis Martins, growth is optional, experience is mandatory. So after 20 years of WorkX, you will have 20 years of WorkX. It's quite simple, right? It's a mathematical part of life. It's additive. But your experiences, your growth is not additive. It's a choice to make it happen. I made a choice by going to MBA or to do whatever strange things like getting married. But you know, but they all teach you. Being a father teaches you. Being an MBA graduate teaches you. There is not one pill. So the purpose of MBAs or any one thing is not to make you successful by its own. It's you who has to make it. It's me who has to make it.
Very important point. I mean, it's we to decide what do we want, and it's we have to take a call based on that, on our requirement. It's not about that past 20 years, it's about next 20 or 25 years, whatever we feel for ourselves. So with this, now we'll take last few questions, and then probably we can sum up the session. And because now people are looking from the startup perspective. So few people or the few participants have the questions regarding how does this PGPMAX program get give benefits to the people who are on the early stage of startups or who are aspiring for starting up the company or becoming the entrepreneurs. So especially in today's challenging time, how does this important and how PGPMAX can add value to that? So who would like to answer this question? Probably Santanu or Saju, whosoever like to answer this. Basically value for the entrepreneurship or new startups.
Yeah, so I don't think any of us have experience about entrepreneurship. So but then let me take a stab at that, having worked in an incubator business within Philips, actually. So yeah, so especially in these times, I think it's important for us to really re-innovate in terms of let me step back a little bit. So I think from my experience, what Philips did with the digital pathology is we actually heard the customers in the market. We heard it is an important piece that is missing in the market. And we felt we could create the solution or bridge that requirement in the market. So from a strategic standpoint, it was a very important thing for us to evaluate and then be committed to that. Because if you're getting into a startup, you're not there for the short term, right? You don't expect to invest for 2 years or 3 years and then expect to be successful. You probably need to think about investing for 10 years or 15 years, right? So the startup business that Philips has invested in, this was started about 10 years back. We are still negative EBITDA, right? We probably would be positive EBITDA in another couple of years' time, right? So Philips could have decided in 5 years' time, hey, this doesn't make sense. We don't make any money. Let's stop this. But I think that's where the important point is to see how relevant it is in the market. So for example, if you look at the market right now, from a digital pathology perspective, only 9% of the market is digitized at this point, which means the pathologists still look into a microscope now to say if somebody has a cancer or not, right? And if you look at it, it is so prone to variability. So that's why it's so important that technology can create a huge difference there. So that's why Philips thinks that we can make a difference there. So in summary, what I would say is be there for the long term. You cannot be there for the short term, and stay invested in, and you will learn along the path. There's no clear template that you can apply and say, hey, this one should work for me. And like Shantanu mentioned, experience that you gain is not something that you can just keep aside. It is to be used, right?
Very good message. It's not template. It's not a template that anybody can give the template and you replicate that.
Atul is running here. So maybe I can add one thing. Two of my batchmates from PGPMAX, okay, they had their own business and they were entrepreneur, and they joined the PGPMAX. And then we were having this term on the financial management and how you invest and all this. It was amazing. One person just told me during that session, look, earlier, before this session, I was thinking taking debt or financial instruments may not be good, right? Because I may harm my company in the long run. But after doing this, I can see the importance of debt, how you do the financial engineering, how you use it as a financial instrument for your growth. And he told me, if I were not in this session, I wouldn't be willing to invest to grow the business. And of course, that growth also comes with a various perspective, how you manage the growth so that you are not growing too fast. So understanding that actually really helped. And he today is running one of the largest network of health checkups in the country today, almost. So just imagine what kind of transformation he and his business had. because of that session and learning.
That's very important, because then you have to be very precise about your requirement, and then you work towards that. And then with the peers learning and the professor in the class, we can ask and for the specific things, and we can develop queries for our requirement and solution for the specific problem what we are looking for. So thank you for that. And now, since whatever we do, we look for the satisfaction out of it, and the whole objective of anything we do in life, we look for ultimately why do we do that? So the last question of the session and to the panel is related to satisfaction, because somebody is asking what is the most satisfaction thing which comes to the candidate after completing this program. And to top of that, I would request the panelists to give your opinion and your perspective to the newcomer or the prospective PGPMAX student for this course. So basically there are two questions. So who would like to answer this? Open to panelists. And everybody can give their opinion, because this is something satisfaction different for everyone. So I'll start with Indranil, and then we'll come to Pallavi, Saju and Santanu. So Indranil, to you.
Look, I think satisfaction is very personal. Fulfillment, satisfaction is very personal, and it also links to your own values and beliefs. As a person, one of my values and beliefs is continuous learning. And I was so happy that, and even today, that I took that step, doing the executive MBA, when perhaps it was not needed by my organization or for the career. I just did it out of sheer curiosity, the learning, I just did it. And then I'm so happy that I took that step. And that was most fulfilling for me, that it opened up my mind. I learned, I'm able to do my time management much better today. That's the key. And then I would say one of the, if you ask me for the new participants who are going to come to the program, don't come to the program thinking that after this program you'll have a big career jump or you have a nice job, a better job. If you are ready to open up your perspective, this is the program. If you are going to get into global perspective, this is the program. That's my advice.
So same to the Pallavi, what is your satisfaction level with this program, and how do you feel, and what is your message to the prospective PGPMAX student?
I think personally, I was extremely satisfied with the program. I think I would want to bring out the fact that the quality of our professors is top-notch, absolute top-notch. The course study, which is included as a part of curriculum, is not a dated one. It's latest. You would, let's say, macroeconomics would cover the, I won't be surprised if it would cover the COVID situation, how each government has been managing their situation, a whole analysis and discussion over it. So it's as latest as it can be. So I'm extremely satisfied with the technical aspects of it. I would say that I think for me it was, I would say it was a big challenge, because you're managing all of this along with an extremely busy work life, family. I hadn't taken a vacation in 2 years. Some people were able to, but I wasn't able to at least. I have been happy with the kind of work that I put in terms of pre-course, because how much you can take out or get out of each of these sessions is directly correlated to how much you put in before you come to the class. And one last thing, I would say that, like Shantanu said, Virat Kohli wasn't really looking for the champagne, but yeah, I enjoyed that bit as well. So yeah, I think ISB PGPMAX parties are the best.
That's good. So the final words from Saju and Santanu on this, and then we may close the session because we are running ahead of time. So let's final word here from Saju and then Santanu.
Yeah, sure. So I think having worked 20 years in the healthcare industry, you tend to think you know everything, right? So I think for me, the most satisfying thing would be that after the program, actually trying to reinvent myself Yeah. So in the last 3 years, probably I may have attended maybe double the number of webinars and P2 sessions to learn and understand than what I would have done in the previous 22 years. So it really puts you on a path of learning where you're more excited to learn new things, trying to understand, benchmark against different industries and things, which I would not have done if I had not done this course probably, or met the numerous people that we had in the batch and connecting with the others actually.
Good. So Santanu, what is your satisfaction level, and then how do you share your experience and final satisfaction and message to the prospective student of PGPMAX?
Yeah, I am a bit of a bookworm. I have always been a sort of a nerd, and so I always liked academic ideas. And for me, it was like a revisit to the temple. So in that sense, that you feel privileged to be amongst people who are very learned, like Shaju said, like everyone said. Your cohort is your co-teacher, actually, not just the very good professors who we fly in from various parts of the globe. And but it's really the community, the ecosystem teaches you. And for me, I'm somebody who's a slave to academic ideas. I love them. And that because so what it's done for me is it's left me more hungry. I may possibly do another MBA in another 5 years, or even do a PhD. It's something that has always been on my mind. As I already said, success is a very personal definition. For me, I'd like to spend the last bit of my career perhaps teaching. And I was also asking very nasty questions to Dean Srivastava as well. I think there were a couple of them. So it's for me, it's I felt confident enough to ask those academic questions to somebody who's an academic giant, although I might have looked stupid to him, but at least I tried. And I think having the chutzpah needs a little bit of confidence. And as leaders, we need to show a little bit of that confidence. And an academic base gives you that. So please, when you come here, please learn, whether you learn from the books or whether you learn from the cohort or whether you learn from the teacher or from the beer prices in the bar. Please learn. And second, so so I think that there's the, somebody like me would only give that as the suggestion to people. And please find your own way. Don't look for an automatic ROI. It won't happen. You will need to make it happen. And that's it. And thank you everyone for having me.
That's a very great message, Santanu, because so the message from the panel is be hungry, be progressive, keep progressive thoughts, and then find your own way of success. There is no template, and then you find your own way, learning with the peers, learning from the professor, and learning from your life. So now with this note, I would like to thank the panelists for sharing their valuable experience and insight about their professional growth. And I'm sure this will inspire many PGPMAX students to set their direction right in their life. And thank you to all the participants for sparing time and listening and getting the experience directly from the experienced professional and successful professional in their respective fields. And we know that there are certain questions which were unanswered because of short of time. So maybe some question which is very specific to the course, participant can get the detail from ISB prospectus, or they can write directly to the ISB and to the panelist also if they need answer directly from panelist. So I am sure now everybody is enough for this time of sitting for 1.5 hours. So thank you everyone. Thank you very much for the time. And Poonam, thank you for organizing this. So can we close the session now?
Yeah, so we have this pop-up survey on the screen. So we would request the participants to please share your feedback. So it will help us out to improvise, and as well as anyone who is more interested about the PGPMAX program and specific questions related to the program, please write to us at pgpmax@isb.edu, or you can reach out to the numbers which were there on the screen. And thank you so much, all the panelists, Shantanu, Indraneel, Shaju and Pallavi, and thank you, Atul, as well, for moderating the session. It was a pleasure having you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so
much. Thank you, everyone.
So yeah, thank you.
Bye.